Welcome back. All right, so some news of the day for all you fine people on the internet for your Monday, December the 11th. And yeah, there's some funky shadows being cast in my room right now because of the sun outside, but hey, you know what happens. So if you're like, I don't like what he's done with the lighting, it's natural. Anyways, waiver wire news to start things off. Boris Katchouk has been waived by the Chicago Blackhawks. I don't think Katchouk gets picked up. He has not had a great run so far this year. However, he is at an age where somebody might look at him and say, hey, he could be a good fit, so we'll see if he clears. Same could be said of Samorukov being on waivers for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll see if he clears waivers as well. We're close enough to the Christmas freeze where I think a lot of rosters are probably going to be set, and then you get into the salary cap situation too. But we'll see. We'll see if either of them end up being picked up this time tomorrow. Dylan Larkin has been placed on IR, and they're still not certain on when his return date is going to be. It sounds like it's not as bad as it could have been with Larkin, but they've also placed Compher and Kostin on the IR as well. So, on an emergency basis, there are some call ups for the Detroit Red Wings today. They've called up Zarnik, Aston Reese, and Berggren. The good news is all three of those players are capable of playing in the National Hockey League. In the case of Aston Reese and Zarnik, it's likely not the first time they've been used on an emergency basis. And for Berggren, he's a good young player. Just has, I believe, the one assist in 4 games so far this year for Detroit. But Berggren's got some talent. So we'll see how Detroit navigates this. Pretty major test, and they have the game against Dallas tonight as well. So we'll see. So Ethan Bear, Elliot Friedman saying Washington's the team to watch with Ethan Bear. The Vancouver Canucks have been told that they're out. Rick Dollywall reporting that today. So if you're excited about wearing your Ethan Bear Canucks jersey, you still can be, but he's not going to be a Vancouver Canuck, at least not in this go around. And it's kind of too bad. It does feel like the Canucks were leaving that door open and, willing to bring him back. And he had a decent run with Vancouver last year, but now Vancouver's going to have to pivot and look elsewhere. So we'll see if he does end up with the Caps or where he ends up signing. Eric Gudbranson has a hearing today for the altercation with Nick Cousins. It was an interesting sight yesterday, and I've seen people questioning my recollection of it or how I reported on it. And yeah, Nick Cousins Turtles. Now, did Gudbranson blindside him? A little bit. However, Cousins had to know he was out there on the ice with him. And I was honestly a little bit surprised that Florida had Cousins out there so soon after the incident. But yeah, so Gudbranson's looking at a suspension for what happened yesterday. On other Columbus news, Tarasov has been activated off LTIR. And that's a situation to look at too, because there's been speculation about whether or not Spencer Martin gets traded as soon as Tarasov's good to go. Well, Tarasov being off LTIR and being called up from a conditioning stint in the AHL tells you they believe he's good to go. So now is where the rubber meets the road, and we see whether or not Martin gets traded, if he ends up on waivers, or what happens. Tanner Pearson, the Montreal Canadiens announcing last night he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. It's an upper body injury for Tanner Pearson. It's too bad. Pearson got off to a good start with the Montreal Canadiens, and it looked like he was going to have a really good season. Fell off a bit production-wise. I still like Tanner Pearson, but he does tend to get injured. And so hopefully he's back in 4 weeks rather than 6, and he heals up nicely. It does mean that by the time he comes back, we'll be looking at late January and potentially late January. Be interesting to see what kind of position Montreal's in, and then the questions can be asked of who Montreal's going to keep, who they're going to trade, and all that stuff at the trade deadline. Again, depending on how things are going and whether or not they're still in the hunt for a playoff spot. Interesting news with Jacob Vrana, kind of, sort of, and I say kind of, sort of, because it's kind of, sort of news, but not quite yet. So the St. Louis Blues, Jacob Vrana, worked well last year. This year it hasn't worked as well. And reportedly, Jeremy Rutherford reporting that he was going to go on waivers. He did not go on waivers today. So the waiver wire news of Jacob Vrana comes out, and the deadline passes of waivers. He's not on waivers right now. Doesn't mean he won't be on waivers tomorrow. And it'll be interesting to see if his $2.6 million cap hit gets through waivers, as it did before when he was with Detroit. Vrana has a lot of talent. He also can be very much up and down in his play. There's the inconsistency there. And if Vrana's on the verge of being placed on waivers by St. Louis, my guess is they've been working the phones trying to figure out a trade, and there just isn't anything there. So at any rate, we'll see what happens with Vrana if he does in fact get waived or if he does get traded. But let me know your thoughts on that. And of course, with tonight's games coming up, keep in mind John Tavares does have 998 points. They're in New York at UBS Arena. It would seem to be the perfect situation where Tavares gets the 2 points necessary for 1,000 to do it in front of the New York crowd. And I'll be very interested to see if in fact he does it, what kind of reception that gets, and what kind of ovation. Has enough time passed now that Islander fans will be like, yeah, cool, Tavares gets 1,000 points. We'll go ahead and give him an ovation. It'll be interesting to see what happens there if that comes to pass. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.